Yo, what's up gamers? It's your boy, and welcome to Tierpark Salzert, my newest Planet Zoo project, as well as YouTube tutorial series on how to make zoos more visually appealing. During this series, we will be going over the purpose of zoos, the basics of zoo attractiveness, as well as the 12 rules of exhibit design. But before we dive into all of that, let me tell you how I learned all of this stuff for myself and where I got the idea for this project. So this zoo and this YouTube series are based off a book called Making Zoos Attractive: 12 Basic Rules of Exhibit Design, written by Wolfgang Salzert. I heard about this book by watching my personal favorite Planet Zoo YouTuber, Eben. I think his builds are not only some of the best looking ones out there, but they are also some of the most realistic. And so when I heard him talking about this book, I knew that I had to get a copy. So I ordered an English one all the way from Germany, because it's not like this is a super common book. You're not going to find this in your local library. Zoo design is a very niche topic, but we as Planet Zoo players are very passionate about it. So I read the book, and I had the idea to share the information of this book with my fellow Planet Zoo players. So this first video in the series is basically just the introduction of the book, where I'll talk about the purpose of a zoo and how we can fulfill that purpose as zoo creators. The next 3 videos will focus on how to make zoos enjoyable for your guests. And then after that, we'll get into the 12 rules of exhibit design, and I will be making one video with one habitat for each of the 12 rules. I've been planning this series for months and months now, so I hope y'all are as excited about this as I am. So Dr. Salzert opens his book by explaining what the role of a zoo is. The first role is basically to function as a modern-day Noah's Ark. In a world where so many ecosystems and animals are quickly being driven to extinction, it's important that we preserve the ones that we can by keeping animal species in captivity. Even though this may be a bit of a controversial take, since there's plenty of people out there who are very against keeping animals in captivity, but we're not going to get into that. The second role of a zoo is to educate the public on these animals and how we can help preserve them. The third role of zoos is to research animals. Many animals are very difficult to observe in the wild, and zoo animals can offer valuable information on how we can preserve their species. Now, to fulfill these roles, zoos need to generate money. And this money is primarily going to come from guests. And this is where the idea of making zoos attractive and the rules of exhibit design come into play. So basically, zoos are made for guests, which might seem a little odd. We think that zoos are made for animals, right? Nope. They are made for the guest's experience. Animals can be kept in captivity just fine without having people look at them. In fact, they'd probably be better off without people staring at them all day. But keeping wild animals requires money, and that money has to come from the general public. This is the most important thing to keep in mind when designing a zoo. But I feel like it is also one of the most forgotten aspects of zoo design by the general Planet Zoo community. The main draw of this game is, of course, the animals, and we all just want to make pretty habitats for our animals. And that's fine. That's perfectly okay. That's what I've been doing in this game. Most of my time playing it is just making pretty habitats for animals. But to really elevate your building to the next level, you need to keep a lot of things in mind, like, is the guest's view from the path actually a good view? Does your zoo's guest flow help your guests see and appreciate all your habitats and avoid getting lost? Do you have good education for your guests? Do you have food and gift shops and toilets and all these things that your guests really need? these are the kinds of things that need to be planned first when you're designing your zoo layout. Well before you get to doing any of your habitats, even though that's the fun part. And that's kind of why this video took me so long to get out, is because I wasn't really doing any of the fun part for this video. I was building entrance buildings and different scenery and blah blah blah, and there's some swans there, but that's not really an exhibit. But anyway, it's not as fun, but like I said, to elevate your building to the next level, these are the important things that you need to learn. I've talked about the planning process that I had for my first zoo before, and how I just kind of took a map and I just put a bunch of circles on the map for every single habitat, and that was my map that I made for the zoo. I didn't plan really anything for the guests outside of where the entrance was going to be. There was no roads planned, no restaurants, no gift shops, no nothing. I had an idea for all these habitats, and I just skipped everything else, and then eventually that zoo project ended up in the trash because I didn't really know what I was doing. And even though some of my habitats were really nice looking, my zoo layout was just super weird and didn't make a lot of sense as a zoo. And I've seen and I've heard of this happening to so many people playing this game, where you start making something and you're going along, and then you get part of the way through it, and then you just become unsatisfied with what you've made, and then you just kind of end up scrapping the project and you move on to something else, and you might work on that for a while until you maybe become unsatisfied with that one. And it's this cycle where you just keep on doing things but you're not happy with it, and then you start something new, and it just keeps going on, and it can become very disheartening to constantly be working on things and never actually having anything completed to show for it. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to remedy with this series, is maybe to help people actually finish things and be proud of the things that they finish. I will say that the things that I have built in this project so far, I am very proud of, and I think is my best work so far in this game. And it's because of all the things that I've learned and all the time and the practice that I've put into this game that I've been able to make something that so far, and hopefully continuing onwards, I am and will continue to be proud of. As Planet Zoo players, I think what we all really want is to be able to complete our project and to upload it to the Steam Workshop, and to have other Planet Zoo players come and visit our zoos and be like, wow, this looks fantastic. And that's really the whole purpose of this series, is to help people make things that they're proud to show off, and when other people come to visit your zoos, they will be impressed with you as well. But that's enough rambling for now. Let's talk a little bit about the build itself, because I've created a whole lore, sort of in-depth lore, not the most in-depth lore of all time, but a decently in-depth lore for this entire project. So, as you may have noticed from the name, this is a German zoo, and it's built on the estate of a former, well, I guess not former, a man descended from former German nobility. And this man back in, I don't know, mid 1900s would have been a very passionate safari man slash hunter of exotic creatures. And this man took all of these exotic animals that he found on his travels back to his estate in Germany and created his own little private zoo. I guess it would have also been open to the public at this point in time, until the man eventually passed away and he left everything to his son, and then the zoo was closed off to the public, and the zoo itself and all the animals inside it were just kind of left as they were, until eventually the man's son passed away without any family members, any children or anything. and it was decided that the estate and all of the facilities would be converted into a more ethical and modern zoo. All the animals that were unfit to live at the facilities that were built here at the time would be transported out to different zoos, and the facilities that were left behind would be given to smaller, more manageable wildlife. And to be the president of this zoo, they brought in Wolfgang Salzert, the author of the book. I guess this would have to be an alternate universe, a parallel universe, multi-dimension. What's the word? The word that the thing that is so common in media these days? Multiverse? Is it? Did I already say that? I might have said that. It's a little late and I need to go to bed, but we're gonna keep rolling. Yeah, Wolfgang Salzert came in to bring the zoo into the modern age, to make it more attractive and more humane and all these wonderful things. And so here we are many years later, and the zoo is lovely and gorgeous and beautiful. And yeah, that's as far as the lore has gotten, at least for this episode. As you can see, I kind of got halfway through the building in the back there. It is a German zoo, as I have already told you. So I went to Google Images and I googled German half-timber architecture. Excuse me, there's the yawn for the episode, you're welcome. Yeah, half-timber architecture, and I based everything, at least all the buildings and stuff in this video, off of that. Being a nobleman, at least the family that owned the estate, they were noble back in the day. They would have had basically a whole large staff, and these people would have had somewhere to live. And that's what these entrance buildings definitely were, past tense. They were just housing, basically, for the staff of these noblemen. And so these have been converted. And this building up here, I actually, as you can see in the background there, the windows are all see-through glass because I was going to do interiors on this building, and I guess I probably still will at some point, but I just didn't do that for this video. I was trying to make like a modular office set where it would have like desks and cabinets and things like that, but I think that was setting my sights a little bit too high, being a little bit too ambitious, and that's gonna go on hiatus potentially indefinitely, because that's just too much detail, more detail than I really care to put in. Here I'm working on these custom made cobblestone retaining walls that the whole time I've been planning for this project, I had this in mind, where I was going to make these custom cobblestone walls. There are the cobblestone walls in the Europe pack, I believe it is, which, you know, they're fine, but they're just like flat, which isn't really how cobblestone walls work. They're not going to be perfectly two-dimensional in real life. So I wanted to make my own to give them that extra three-dimensional look to them. And they turned out quite well. Quite satisfied with that. So I'm not actually German myself, at least not born in Germany. I do have some ancestors from Germany. I'm part German, but I, as you can probably tell by my accent, am from America, and so I don't actually speak German. So I'm gonna try and put up some signs in the zoo, but if any German speaking people see my signs and are like, wow, that doesn't make any sense at all, just let me know. I'll try and fix it. I think the zoo would be placed somewhere in southern Germany, most likely. Digital Blob, when he saw the architecture that I had made, he said it looked very Bavarian to him, and I mean, he's European, so he probably knows better than me. He also has a YouTube channel. You should check out Digital Blob, his Paws series, the cat sanctuary. Very nice. Yeah, and then also the dark forest. Is it dark forest or is it black forest? I don't know. My brain has ceased to function, and it's exceptionally bad at the moment. Black forest. Let me Google search some stuff real quick. Yeah, Southwest Germany. So the foliage in this project is going to be very Black Forest inspired, and so that's kind of where I got the idea, because Bavaria and the Black Forest are both in the southern parts of Germany, and lots of this zoo is just going to be in the woods basically. Been watching a lot of Just Goron's inspiration for like specific animal videos. Just watched this one on brown bears and how I really like those habitats because they were just like in the woods, just straight up just in a fully natural forest, which is not something I've seen in any zoos that I've been in. All the zoos I've been to have just been like in the middle of cities, so they don't really have that. But yeah, I definitely took inspiration from Just Goron's video, because I will probably be putting a type of brown bear in this zoo. You'll see that later on. Okay, so here I've started working on the lake area, and this lake has the mute swan in it, several mute swans, and they're meant to be breeding pairs on this lake. So basically this whole area, my idea behind this is that it would have been like a nicely gardened area back in the day when it was owned by nobility, but now in the modern day we've decided to just sort of turn this area back over to nature so that it can be used as nesting grounds for the mute swan. And there's 5 breeding pairs in here, but there's also 11 swans in here. I think I got 10 swans, and then I wanted to get one of the leucistic ones, which, if you didn't know, there is actually leucistic swans in the game, but you can't tell because the swans are already white. The only difference is their feet are pink instead of black, so that's cool. I don't actually know if the babies are different, because I think normal baby mute swans are like gray, but the leucistic ones actually come out white, and then, you know, when they become adults they all are white anyway. So I haven't seen that yet. At some point I will allow them to breed, and there will be little baby swans in this project, but that's later on. And then here I wanted to make functional mute swan nests, and you may have already seen these because these actually hit the #1 spot for most popular Planet Zoo blueprints of the week on the Steam Workshop, and I was very happy about that. That was I guess I peaked at that moment in my Planet Zoo career by having one of my blueprints be the #1 most popular item of the week. That was cool, I guess. It has like 1,000 subscribers, so that made me happy. It's not like perfect. These Oceanian sticks, they work pretty well, but really these nests would have been built out of reeds, and so these were like the closest things I could find. Really, in Planet Zoo, we always need smaller pieces, and the pieces are just always end up being too big. But it is what it is. It works. That's the important thing. The swans actually will go on the nests and go to sleep, and that's really what I wanted out of it for the most part. And yeah, as long as it works, and it does work, and it looks pretty good, and it adds a lot to this build. It's definitely one of my favorite parts, is the whole swan area. I think that's about everything I wanted to talk about, at least for the speed build section. I am aware that this video is exceptionally long. I don't really like making my videos this long, but this is a product of like about 2 months of work, and so the speed build was bound to be pretty long. And so if you are interested in sticking around for the speed build, I'm gonna head out and come back for a real-time part later on. You can come and join me there, or you can let the rest of the speed build play out if that's something that interests you. I did do some nice stuff in this speed build. But yeah, I'll be back in the real-time part. Alright, so here we are at the parking lot, and I gotta say, I was not too thrilled about the idea of making a parking lot, because it's not very interesting at all to build a parking lot. But I did it anyway, and that's kind of what you have to do in this game sometimes. Is you kind of just have to do things, even if you don't really want to do them, because doing things is what helps you learn how to do things. And that's the wisdom that I have for you for the day. But I really wanted to put a ton of detail into this, so I put like, there's little drains. You can kind of see them here. They're maybe not, these were kind of an afterthought, so they're maybe not as incredibly detailed as I could have gone, but that's more effort than I care to put in. So there's like drains along the side. There's these little ramps going up and down off the sidewalk, with all these little bumps that I used eggs to make. And then there's like different foliage. I did work a lot on the foliage because I wanted to look very natural as possible. So this part over here is kind of like when you have an open field in a temperate biome. I know this because I live in a temperate biome. I'm an expert on this matter. And you just have like these open fields, and then they get overgrown with just like all this tall grass and these brambles. Yeah, that's what these are called. That's the vibe I was going for over here. And then it kind of transitions to more low, lush greenery stuff as you get closer to the water, because the ground is more wet over here. And then you get to the lake, and there's swans everywhere. Look at how many swans there are. Oh, I'm standing on a trash can. They're all hanging out over there. I wonder why. I never see them just hanging out in the middle of the lake. I swear there's two forage feeders. There's one right here, which I have very hidden. You can't even tell. But I swear they just go back and forth between the two feeders. But they're actually just hanging out. But yeah, just hit all this with the faux duckweed, which is actually just the periwinkle leaves. Some other details I did put here. So I blended the dirt texture into the mulch texture of the path with decals, and on the other side it blends with the grass texture. I made the decals green. They're the moss decals. The moss decals are like the absolute goats of pieces in this game. And I guess, see, when they all start flocking in the same direction, that's how you know they're going for the feeder. Look, all of them, every single one of them. Except this one. I don't know where that one's going. But yeah, this is just like the little nature trail, and the nature trail would extend like way off in the distance that way. I'll do that at some point, because really there's more to this whole estate than just the zoo. There would just be like just kind of grounds out this way, which you could just like, you could go on walks or jogs or whatever. You could just come and like hang out, and that wouldn't cost any money to just walk around in the wilderness. But if you want to go to the zoo, you gotta pay the entrance fee. So then going over here, it's more of the same, more of the same. I did put a lot of like dead logs and stuff in the water. I thought that was a nice touch. And then we keep going this way. I used a lot of the what are these even called? Hedges? The hedge animals? I don't know. I feel like maybe I used too many. Because they're just kind of all over the place, and it looks maybe a little goofy, but I don't care. I'm leaving it at this point. Oh, I forgot to mention a feature that I was very what's the word? Intent on adding is I wanted the path to be ever so slightly higher than the pavement, and I did pull that off, and it was like stupidly complicated. Let me come out of explore mode for a second. You can see just this monstrosity that I performed on the terrain down here. I used well, first of all, I had to use free build to do this, but then I used the terrain stamp tool to basically remove all of the ground right next to the path so that I could have the path be on an elevated position right above the ground over here, and it would all work. Because normally with the paths in this game, you have to have like a certain amount of ground next to them, but with free build you could just make that be not a thing. And then going over here, I put this little like alcove balcony. I don't know exactly what you would call this. I saw this in some of the pictures that I saw, where they would have these little alcove things sticking out, and it would almost be like an entirely different architecture style than the rest of the building. And so I wanted to implement that because I thought it looked cool. So instead of half timber, it has all these Indonesian flower wooden pieces. Not that it's really meant to be Indonesian, but anyways. Then over here, I had the idea to do this pond the whole time, right from the beginning, but I realized it wasn't going to work quite as I wanted it to, because I had to elevate the pond to the level of the path, because it was going to be lower down originally, but I had to lift it up, and then I had to fill in all this space over here. So I was going to make a gazebo, but that really got really complicated really fast, and I was just like, I'm not going to spend all this time building a custom gazebo. So instead I just put up a couple benches and made a little sundial, which is just like 3 pieces, very simple. And then there's the bell tower, which the little bells, I think they're a little too small. They look a little silly with how small they are. If there was like a size in between the big one and the small ones, I would have used those, but there's not, and there's no piece scaling in this game because I don't know, it makes me sad. But that's really all I've done so far. The next time we will talk more about building for guests and social activities for guests, because you know, you don't just go to the zoo and only look at animals. There's, you know, there's food, there's gift shops, there's all kinds of things, and you know, you don't usually, unless you're a super nutty zoo enthusiast, you don't usually go by yourself. It's usually a social thing. But that's something we will talk about in the next video. So if you enjoyed this and you want to see more, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will happily see you in the next video. Bye.